Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Hanbit, watching the stars through the main window. His ship had traveled 47 light years from Earth. This was the farthest any human had ever gone into space. The crew of 200 people had been asleep in special pods for most of the journey. Now they were all awake and ready to explore. "Captain, we're picking up something big on our sensors," said Commander Kim Jae-wook from his station. He was the ship's security chief and Tae-ho's oldest friend. They had served together in the Earth Defense Force before joining this mission. Tae-ho walked over to look at the screen. What he saw made his eyes grow wide. A huge structure floated in space ahead of them. It was bigger than any city on Earth. The surface was smooth and silver, with lights moving across it like rivers of energy. "How big is that thing?" Tae-ho asked. "About 500 kilometers long," said Engineer Choi Hana from her station. She was young but very smart with machines. "I've never seen anything like it. The technology is far beyond what we have on Earth." Dr. Park So-young joined them at the main screen. She was the ship's scientist who studied alien life. Her job was to make contact with any aliens they might find. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "We're not alone in the universe." Suddenly, the ship's alarms started ringing. Red lights flashed on every wall. Commander Kim looked at his controls with worry on his face. "Captain, we have company. 5 ships just appeared around us. They came out of nowhere." The alien ships were beautiful, but scary. They looked like they were made of crystal and light. Each one was twice the size of the Hanbit. They moved without making any sound, surrounding the human ship in a perfect circle. "Are they trying to talk to us?" Tae-ho asked. Dr. Park checked her equipment. "Yes, I'm getting a signal. They're using radio waves, but the language is completely unknown." "Wait. I think they're trying to learn our language from our computer systems." A few minutes later, a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and strange, like wind blowing through metal tubes. "Small vessel from the 3rd planet of the yellow star. You will stop moving and prepare to be examined." Tae-ho took a deep breath. This was the moment he had trained for his whole life. "This is Captain Lee Tae-ho of the Earthship Hanbit. We come in peace. We want to learn about other life in the galaxy." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again. "You are in the space of the galactic hegemony. All life forms in this area belong to the Empire. You will follow our ship to the processing station." "Processing station?" Dr. Park whispered. "That doesn't sound good." One of the alien ships moved closer. A beam of light shot out and locked onto the Hanbit. The human ship started moving without using its engines. They were being pulled along like a fish on a line. "Captain, should we fight?" asked Commander Kim. His hand was already moving toward the weapons controls. Tae-ho shook his head. "Not yet. We need to learn more about them first. But keep our weapons ready." As they were pulled through space, more alien ships appeared. Soon there were hundreds of them. Some were small and fast like fighters. Others were huge like flying cities. The Hanbit looked tiny compared to these massive vessels. "Look at all of them," said Engineer Hana with wonder in her voice. "They must have technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours." They were brought to a space station that was even bigger than the first structure they had seen. It was shaped like a giant wheel, spinning slowly in space. Lights covered every surface, and smaller ships flew around it like insects around a flower dot. The Hanbit was pulled into a docking bay. Through the windows, they could see aliens walking around. Most of them were tall and thin, with skin that looked like colored glass. They moved with smooth, flowing motions that seemed almost like dancing. "Prepare to meet with our representative," the voice said through the speakers. "You will bring 5 of your kind to the meeting chamber. No weapons are allowed." Tae-ho picked his team quickly. He would go with Dr. Park, Commander Kim, Engineer Hana, and Medical Officer Yoon Dong-min. They put on their best uniforms and made sure their translation devices were working. The docking bay was huge and filled with strange smells. The air was thick and warm. Alien workers stopped their tasks to stare at the humans. Some pointed at them and made sounds that might have been talking. They were led through long corridors by two tall aliens. The walls were covered with moving pictures that showed different worlds and star systems. Everything was clean and bright, but it felt cold and unwelcoming. The meeting chamber was a large round room with a high ceiling. In the center was a raised platform where an alien stood waiting. This one was different from the others. It was taller, and its crystal-like skin had more colors in it. Patterns of light moved under its surface like slow lightning. "I am Keth Moore, speaker for this sector of the hegemony," the alien said. Its voice came from a device around its neck, translating its words into human language. "You are from a species that calls itself human. Your world has been observed but never contacted directly." Dr. Park stepped forward. "We're honored to meet you, Speaker Keth Moore. We've come to learn and hopefully make friends with other intelligent species." Keth Moore made a sound that might have been laughter. "Friends? Your species is young and primitive. You have barely learned to travel between stars. In the hegemony, there are thousands of species. Most serve the Empire as workers or soldiers. A few are allowed to govern their own worlds if they prove useful." Captain Tejo felt anger growing in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We may be new to space travel, but we're not primitive. We've survived wars, diseases, and natural disasters on our world. We've learned to work together and solve problems." "Perhaps," said Keth Moore, "but survival on one world is different from surviving in the galaxy. Here, the strong rule and the weak serve. Your species must be tested to see where you belong in the order of things." "Tested how?" asked Commander Kim. "You will be taken to the Imperial capital. There you will face the same trials that all species must pass. If you succeed, your people may be allowed limited membership in the hegemony. If you fail..." Keth Moore paused. "Your species will be classified as protected primitives. Your world will be watched but not contacted again." Dr. Park looked worried. "And if we refuse to take these tests?" Keth Moore's skin flashed with bright red light. "Refusal is not an option. Species that refuse to be tested are considered dangerous. Dangerous species are removed from the galaxy." The threat was clear. "Take the tests or face destruction." Captain Tejo stepped forward. "We didn't travel 47 light years to bow down to anyone. If you want to judge humanity, then judge us fairly. But know this: we won't be anyone's slaves." The room became very quiet. Other aliens who had been watching started whispering among themselves. Keth Moore stared at Tejo for a long moment. "Interesting," the alien finally said. "Most species beg for mercy at this point. You show either great courage or great foolishness. Very well, humans. You will have your chance to prove your worth. But remember, the trials have destroyed many species who thought they were ready." As they were led back to their ship, Tejo wondered if he had made the right choice. But there was no going back now. Humanity was about to face its greatest test. The journey to the Imperial capital took 3 days. The Hanbit was escorted by a fleet of alien ships that never left their side. Captain Lee Tejo spent most of the time preparing his crew for whatever tests they would face. "Remember," he told his officers in the meeting room, "we represent all of humanity. Everything we do here will decide the future of our species." Dr. Park So-young had been studying the alien database they were given access to. "I've learned about some of the other species in the hegemony," she said. "Most of them failed these trials and became servant races. Only a few dozen species out of thousands have full membership." "What kind of tests are we talking about?" asked Commander Kim Jae-wook. "3 main areas," Dr. Park replied: intelligence, combat ability, and survival skills. Each test is designed to push a species to their limits. Engineer Choi Hana looked worried. "Their technology is so far ahead of ours. How can we compete with that?" "We don't compete with their technology," said Captain Tejo. "We compete with our minds, our courage, and our ability to adapt. Those are things that can't be measured by machines." When they arrived at the Imperial capital, everyone gasped. The city was built around a massive star that had been turned into a power source. Thousands of space stations orbited the star, connected by bridges of light. Ships moved between the stations like streams of water flowing through the air. How many beings live here? Whispered pilot Yoon Dong-min. The database says over 50 billion, Dr. Park answered. Representatives from every species in the hegemony. They were brought to a station called the Evaluation Center. Inside, hundreds of different aliens waited in large halls. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living metal. A few looked almost human, but with extra arms or different colored skin. Welcome to your testing, said Kethmore, who had come to oversee their trials. You will face 3 challenges. First, a representative from your species will compete in the trial of mind. Second, 2 of your warriors will face the trial of combat. Finally, your entire group will undergo the trial of survival. The first test took place in a room filled with floating screens and strange machines. Dr. Park was chosen to represent humanity's intelligence. She sat at a table across from representatives of 5 other species who were also being tested. You have 4 hours to solve these problems, announced the alien judge. You may use any tools provided, but you cannot help each other. The other species immediately started using advanced computers and scanning devices. Dr. Park looked at the equipment available to her. Most of it was too complex for a human to understand quickly. Instead, she picked up a simple writing pad and pen dot. The first problem showed a pattern of symbols that seemed to change randomly. The other contestants fed the data into their computers and waited for answers. Dr. Park stared at the symbols and started drawing them by hand. After 30 minutes, she saw something the computers had missed. It's not random, she said to herself. It's a language that changes based on emotion. She wrote down her answer and moved to the next problem. This one showed a picture of a strange machine with missing parts. The other contestants used scanning devices to analyze the image. Dr. Park looked at it like a puzzle and thought about how machines work. The missing parts aren't mechanical, she realized. They're biological. This machine is alive. One by one, she solved problems that made the other contestants struggle. She used human creativity and intuition instead of relying on technology. When time was up, the judge looked surprised. The human has solved 12 of 15 problems correctly, it announced. This is the highest score achieved by any species in the past 50 years. The trial of combat was next. Commander Kim and pilot Yoon were taken to an arena where hundreds of aliens watched from the stands. Their opponents were 2 warriors from a species called the Bractor. These aliens were 3 meters tall with thick, armor-like skin and 4 powerful arms. The rules are simple, said the arena master. Fight until one side cannot continue. You may use any weapons provided, but no technology beyond basic tools. The weapon racks held swords, spears, and clubs designed for different alien body types. The Bractor warriors picked up massive war hammers that would have crushed a human with one hit. Commander Kim and pilot Yoon looked at each other. They were trained soldiers, but they were much smaller than their opponents. They would have to use their brains instead of strength. We fight like humans, Kim whispered. Fast, smart, and together. The battle began with the Bractor charging, forward like angry bulls. Kim and Yoon scattered in different directions, forcing their opponents to split up. Kim grabbed a spear and started running in circles around one alien, always staying just out of reach. The alien swung his hammer again and again, but never connected. Meanwhile, Yoon found a net and some small throwing knives. He threw the net over the second alien's head, confusing it. While it struggled to get free, Yoon threw knives at its joints, where the armor was thinner. The aliens were strong but slow. They were used to fighting opponents who matched their strength. The quick, unpredictable movements of the humans confused them. After 20 minutes, both Bractor were exhausted from chasing their smaller opponents. When Kim and Yoon struck back. Working together, they used ropes to tangle one alien's legs and bring it down. The other alien, weakened by small cuts from Yoon's knives, finally collapsed from exhaustion. The crowd was silent. No one had expected the small humans to defeat the mighty Bractor warriors. The final test was survival. The entire human team was taken to a hostile planet and dropped in a wilderness filled with dangerous animals and poisonous plants. They had basic clothes and a few simple tools, but no advanced equipment. You have 5 days to reach the extraction point, they were told. The distance is 200 kilometers through some of the most dangerous terrain in the galaxy. Most species who attempt this test do not survive. The planet was a nightmare world. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Strange predators hunted in packs. The plants seemed to move on their own, and many were deadly to touch. "Stay together," ordered Captain Tejo. "We survive as a team or not at all." Dr. Park used her scientific knowledge to identify which plants were safe to eat. Commander Kim organized the group's defenses against the dangerous animals. Engineer Hana built tools and weapons from materials they found. Pilot Yoon scouted ahead to find the safest paths. On the first night, they were attacked by creatures that looked like giant spiders with metal claws. The team fought them off using fire and sharp sticks. On the second day, they had to cross a river filled with acid that could melt through metal. Hana built a bridge using the bones of dead animals. By the third day, they were exhausted and running, low on food. Other species representatives they met along the way were using advanced survival gear, but even they were struggling. Many had already given up and called for rescue. "Why don't you use technology like the others?" asked a representative from the insect-like species. "Because humans learned to survive before we had technology," replied Captain Tejo. "Our ancestors lived through ice ages and asteroid impacts. This planet is dangerous, but our planet taught us to adapt." They reached the extraction point on the fourth day, ahead of schedule. They were dirty, tired, and covered with small wounds, but all 5 humans had made it through alive. Most other species had either been rescued early or arrived days later with heavy technological support. Keth Moore was waiting for them at the extraction point. For the first time, the alien seemed impressed. "In 3,000 years of testing," Kethmore said, "no species has performed as well as yours. You solved problems others needed computers for. You defeated opponents twice your size. You survived using only your natural abilities. The Hegemony Council will be very interested in humanity." Dr. Park wiped sweat from her face. "Does this mean we passed?" "More than passed," Kethmore replied. "You have earned something very rare, full membership in the Galactic Hegemony. Your species will be offered planets to colonize and positions in the government." Captain Tejo felt proud, but he also sensed this was just the beginning. "What happens now?" Kethmore's expression became serious. "Now you learn that passing the trials was the easy part. The real challenge is surviving the politics of the galaxy. Not every species will be happy about humanity's success. Some will see you as a threat to their position." As they boarded the ship to return to the capital, Tejo looked back at the hostile planet they had conquered. Humanity had proved they belonged among the stars, but he wondered what new dangers awaited them in the complex world of galactic politics. The tests were over, but their real trials were just beginning. News of humanity's success in the trials spread quickly through the galaxy. Within weeks, every species in the hegemony knew about the small aliens from the third planet who had passed all 3 tests with flying colors. Captain Lee Tejo stood in the council chamber of the Imperial capital, watching as representatives from hundreds of species debated humanity's future. Some aliens nodded with approval when they saw him. Others turned away with obvious anger. "The Thexhari are not happy," whispered Dr. Park So-young. She pointed to a group of insect-like aliens with sharp claws and multiple eyes. "According to the database, they've been the dominant military force in the hegemony for over 1,000 years." Speaker Kethmore called for order in the chamber. "The Council recognizes humanity as the newest full member of the Galactic Hegemony. They will be granted 3 colony worlds and representation in the governing body." A loud clicking sound came from the Thexhari section. Their leader, a massive creature with armor-like skin, stood up. "This is a mistake," it said in a voice like grinding metal. "These humans are dangerous. They fight with tricks instead of honor. They think in ways that cannot be predicted. Such beings will bring chaos to our ordered galaxy." Commander Kim Jae-wook clenched his fists. The alien was basically calling humans sneaky and untrustworthy. But Captain Tae-ho put a hand on his arm to keep him calm. The trials test exactly what the hegemony values, Tae-ho said, standing to address the council. Intelligence, strength, and survival ability. We proved ourselves fairly. If the Thexhari don't like the results, perhaps they should examine why they fear a species they call primitive. The insect alien's eyes flashed with anger, but before it could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red and a voice announced, "Medical emergency. Plague outbreak on sectors 7 through 15. All medical personnel report immediately." The council chamber erupted in panic. Representatives from different species shouted questions and demands. Kethmore struggled to maintain order. "What kind of plague?" Dr. Park called out above the noise. A medical officer rushed into the chamber. "Unknown disease spreading fast. Already hit 12 worlds. Millions are dead, billions more infected. Our best doctors and computers can't identify it." Dr. Park felt her heart race. As the Hambit's chief medical officer, she had studied diseases from Earth and knew how deadly plagues could be. "I volunteer to help," she announced. The chamber went quiet. The medical officer looked confused. "You're not qualified. This requires advanced knowledge of galactic biology." "I'm a doctor," Dr. Park replied firmly. "Disease is disease, whether it affects humans or aliens. Let me look at the data." Kethmore considered for a moment. "Very well, but understand, this plague has already killed some of our best medical minds. If you become infected, we cannot save you." The medical research station was a scene of controlled chaos. Alien doctors from dozens of species worked frantically at computers and lab benches. Bodies of various aliens were stored in special chambers for study. The smell of death and strange chemicals filled the air. Dr. Park was given access to all the data about the plague. She spent hours reading reports and examining samples through microscopes designed for human use. What she found was terrifying. "This isn't natural," she told the lead researcher, a tall alien with 6 arms who could work on multiple experiments at once. "Someone created this disease. It targets specific genetic markers that most hegemony species share." The alien doctor's expression was grim. "We suspected as much. But even knowing it's artificial, we cannot stop it. The disease adapts too quickly. Every treatment we try becomes useless within hours." Dr. Park studied the genetic code of the plague. Something about it seemed familiar. "Can you give me blood samples from infected members of different species?" "Of course, but why?" "I have an idea, but I need to test it first." Dr. Park worked for 3 days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. She compared the plague's genetic structure to diseases she knew from Earth. What she discovered made her hands shake with excitement. The plague was designed to attack certain genetic sequences that had evolved in most galactic species over millions of years. But humans had evolved differently. Earth's harsh environment had created immune systems that worked in unique ways. "I need to test something," she told Captain Tae-ho over the communication system. "I want to expose myself to a small sample of the plague." "Absolutely not," Tae-ho replied immediately. "It's too dangerous. Captain, I think human immune systems might be resistant to this disease. If I'm right, I could develop a treatment using human antibodies." There was a long pause. "And if you're wrong?" "Then I die, but at least we'll know for sure." Against everyone's advice, Dr. Park exposed herself to a tiny amount of the plague virus. The other doctors watched nervously as she was placed in isolation. According to their models, she should have been dead within 6 hours. But 6 hours passed, then 12, then 24. Dr. Park showed no signs of infection. Her human immune system recognized the artificial virus as a threat and destroyed it before it could take hold. "Incredible," said the lead researcher. "Your species' immunity is completely different from ours. The plague cannot adapt to attack you because it was never designed to understand human biology." Working around the clock, Dr. Park developed a treatment using her own blood. The antibodies that protected her could be modified to protect other species. Within a week, she had created a cure that worked on all infected aliens. But when she announced her success, the reaction wasn't what she expected. Instead of gratitude, many species seemed worried. If we take this cure, we become dependent on humanity, said a representative from the aquatic Myrdal species. What if they decide to withhold it in the future? The Thexhari leader was even more direct. This proves what I said before. Humans are dangerous. Now they have power over life and death for every species in the galaxy. We cannot allow this. Dr. Park was shocked. We're not trying to control anyone. We just want to save lives. Nevertheless, the Thexhari continued, if humanity distributes this cure, they will become too important to the hegemony. Other species will owe them too much. We demand that the cure be turned over to Thexhari medical centers for distribution. Captain Tai-Ho stood up slowly. You want us to hand over the cure so you can control who lives and dies? That's not going to happen. Then you force our hand, the Thexhari leader replied. If humanity insists on making themselves indispensable, they become a threat that must be eliminated. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported the humans, grateful for the cure that would save billions of lives. Others sided with the Thexhari, fearing human influence in galactic affairs. Keth Moore called for order, but it was clear that the hegemony was splitting apart. The council will recess for deliberation, he announced. All parties will refrain from hostile actions until a decision is reached. As the representatives filed out, the Thexhari leader approached Captain Tai-Ho. You have 1 day to surrender the cure and leave this galaxy. If you refuse, the Thexhari Empire will consider humanity an enemy. We have fought and conquered species far more advanced than yours. After the alien left, Dr. Park looked at her captain with tears in her eyes. I just wanted to help people. How did saving lives become a threat to peace? Because some beings value power more than life, Tai-Ho replied. But we won't let them turn healing into a weapon. We'll share the cure with everyone who needs it, no matter what the cost. Commander Kim stepped forward. Captain, if we do this, it means war. The Thexhari have the largest military force in the galaxy. Then we fight, Tai-Ho said simply. Humanity didn't come this far to bow down to bullies. We'll send a message to Earth immediately. It's time for humanity to choose whether we'll stand by our principles or surrender to fear. As night fell on the Imperial capital, species throughout the galaxy prepared for what seemed inevitable. The newest members of the hegemony, the small beings called humans, had drawn a line in space. On one side stood those who believed in helping others regardless of politics. On the other side stood those who saw kindness as weakness and healing as a threat to power. War was coming to the stars, and humanity would face their greatest test yet. The war began 3 months after humanity refused to surrender the plague cure. The Thexhari had spent those months gathering allies and building their forces. When they finally attacked, it was with overwhelming numbers. Admiral Bae Sung-ho arrived from Earth just in time, leading a fleet of 50 human ships. It was the largest force humanity had ever assembled, but compared to the Thexhari armada of over 3,000 vessels, it looked tiny. They outnumber us 60-1, reported Captain Nam Hoseok, the tactical genius Earth had sent to coordinate the defense. Their ships are bigger, faster, and have better weapons than ours. Captain Lee Tai-Ho stood on the bridge of his command ship, now called the New Hope. Around him floated holographic displays showing the positions of enemy forces across 17 star systems. Then we don't fight them the way they expect. The first battle took place near the mining world of Kepler 442b. The Thexhari fleet approached in perfect formation, their massive battleships moving like a wall of metal and energy. This was how galactic warfare had been fought for thousands of years. Big ships in organized groups hammering each other with powerful weapons until one side broke. But humanity had studied military history from their own world. Captain Nam had learned about ancient naval battles, air combat from 2 world wars, and guerrilla tactics used by smaller forces against larger armies. Scatter formation, he ordered the human fleet. All ships, break into small groups and use the asteroid field for cover. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, the human ships split up and disappeared into the rocky debris that surrounded the planet. The Thexhari commanders were confused. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. Where did they go? Demanded Fleet Commander Zexkoth, leader of the Thexhari forces. Find them and destroy them. The alien ships spread out to search the asteroid field. That's when the humans struck. Small groups of human fighters emerged from hiding behind large rocks, attacking the scattered enemy ships like wolves hunting a lone prey. Engineer Wang Dayun had spent months working with allied species to create new weapons. She combined human creativity with alien technology to build tools the enemy had never seen before. Smart missiles that could think for themselves, energy weapons that could bend around obstacles, shields that became stronger when hit instead of weaker. Pilot Yoon Dong-min led the most daring attacks. He had learned to fly his fighter through gravitational fields and magnetic storms that would crush other pilots. In one famous battle, he flew his damaged ship between two colliding asteroids to escape 20 enemy fighters. But the humans' greatest advantage was their unpredictability. While other species followed ancient rules of warfare, humans made up new tactics during each battle. They're using their medical ships as weapons platforms, reported a confused Thexhari officer. They've hidden guns inside hospital vessels. That's against all laws of war, Zexkoth replied. Humans don't seem to care about our laws. The war spread across multiple star systems. The Thexhari had more ships and better technology, but humanity had something more valuable: the support of species who were tired of insect domination. Dr. Park So-young had continued working on medical advances during the fighting. She developed new treatments for injuries and diseases that affected their alien allies. This earned humanity friends among species who had been neutral before. The humans heal our wounded without asking for payment, said Ambassador Veltron of the aquatic Myrdal. They share their knowledge freely. How can we not fight alongside such beings? The turning point came during the Battle of the Trinary Stars. 3 suns orbited each other in a deadly dance, creating gravitational fields that could tear apart any ship that got too close. The Thexhari had trapped a large human fleet near this system, cutting off their escape route. We're surrounded, reported Commander Kim Jae-wook. They have us outnumbered 5-1, and we can't retreat into the gravity fields without being destroyed. Captain Nam studied the tactical display. The 3 stars created constantly changing gravitational patterns that made normal space travel impossible. But maybe. What if we don't try to avoid the gravity? He asked. What if we use it? Engineer Wang looked at the star charts. The gravitational fields are predictable if you do the math right. We could potentially slingshot around the stars to gain speed and change direction. It's insane, said Admiral BAE. One mistake and we'll be crushed or burned up. Better than sitting here waiting to be destroyed, Nam replied. The human fleet began moving toward the 3 stars. The Thexhari thought they were watching their enemies commit suicide. No sane pilot would fly into those deadly gravitational fields. But Pilot Yoon had spent weeks studying the star system. He led the way in his fighter, calculating the exact path needed to ride the gravity waves like a surfer rides ocean waves. One by one, the human ships followed him into what looked like certain death. The gravitational forces grabbed the human vessels and flung them around the stars at incredible speeds. Ships that entered the field at one point came shooting out in completely different directions, moving faster than any engine could push them. The Thexhari fleet was arranged to block the humans' escape in normal directions. They weren't ready for human ships to come flying out of the star system from above and below, moving at speeds that made them nearly impossible to track. The surprise attack shattered the alien formation. Human ships, accelerated by the gravity of 3 stars, smashed through enemy lines like bullets through paper. The battle was over in minutes. Fleet Commander Zexkoth's command ship was crippled in the attack. As human Marines boarded his vessel, he faced Captain Taeho with hatred in his compound eyes. You fight without honor, the alien snarled. You break every rule of civilized warfare. We fight to protect innocent lives, Taeho replied. If that means breaking your rules, so be it. This war is not over. The Thexhari Empire has resources you cannot imagine. We will return with forces that will blot out your sun. Maybe, said Taeho, but we'll be ready for you. The capture of the Thexhari command ship marked the end of the first phase of the war. Humanity had proven they could fight and win against superior numbers and technology, but the cost had been terrible. Many good people had died in the fighting. Ships full of brave soldiers and clever engineers had been destroyed. Dr. Park worked day and night to save the wounded, but she couldn't save everyone. Was it worth it? She asked Captain Tejo as they stood in the medical bay, surrounded by injured humans and aliens. "Look around you," Tejo replied. "Humans working alongside beings from a dozen different worlds, former enemies helping each other heal. Yes, it was worth it. We didn't just win battles. We proved that different species can work together as equals." But even as they celebrated their victories, long-range sensors detected something disturbing at the edge of the galaxy. Unknown ships were approaching, vessels unlike anything in hegemony records. Commander Kim studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Captain, these new contacts are huge, bigger than anything the Thexhari ever built, and they're not answering any communication attempts." Dr. Park looked at the data with scientific curiosity mixed with fear. "The energy signatures are completely unknown. Whatever they are, they're not from this galaxy." Admiral BAE joined them at the sensor station. Could this be why the Thexhari were so desperate to maintain control? Did they know something was coming? As if in answer to his question, a message came through on the emergency frequency. It was Fleet Commander Zexkoth broadcasting from his prison cell. "Foolish mammals." His voice was filled with bitter laughter. "You think you have won something? You have doomed us all. The Devourers come, and only unity under strong leadership could have saved the galaxy. Your chaos has left us defenseless." Captain Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. "What are the Devourers?" "Death," Zexkoth replied. "Death that feeds on entire star systems. They have consumed 3 galaxies, and now they hunger for ours. We had decades to prepare, but you have wasted precious time with your war for freedom." Through the viewport, they could see distant lights moving against the stars. The unknown ships were getting closer, and with them came a threat that would test humanity and their allies like nothing before. The war with the Thexhari was over, but a greater battle was about to begin. 5 years had passed since the Thexhari War ended. The galaxy looked very different now. Humans served alongside aliens on ships of every size and design. The rigid hierarchy of the old hegemony had been replaced by something new, a true alliance of equals. Commander Park Min-ho stood on the bridge of the flagship Mugunghwa, named after Korea's national flower. He was the son of Dr. Park So-young, who had died 3 years earlier while developing new medical treatments for allied species. Like many of his generation, Min-ho had grown up among aliens and thought of them as family rather than strangers. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported his communications officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Kang Soo-bin, who had alien implants that let her speak dozens of languages at once. "It's the Deep Space Monitoring Station. They're sending a priority message." The message appeared on the main screen. An alien scientist with tentacles for arms looked frightened. "Commander Park, we have a problem. The Void Devourers are 3 months away from our galaxy. Our best estimates show they have over 10,000 ships, each one the size of a small moon." Min-ho felt his heart sink. For 5 years, the Alliance had been preparing for this moment. They had built new ships, trained mixed crews, and developed weapons based on human and alien technology working together. But 10,000 ships was far more than anyone had expected. "Have you confirmed the numbers?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "And Commander, they're not just ships. They're machines that eat everything. Planets, stars, even empty space itself. 3 entire galaxies have been consumed. We're dealing with something that sees all organic life as food." Admiral Bae Sung-ho, now an old man but still sharp as a blade, joined Min-ho on the bridge. "Son, it's time to send word to every species in the Alliance. This is what we've been preparing for." Within hours, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered via hologram in the command center. The room filled with aliens of every shape and size, beings made of crystal, creatures that lived in gas clouds, robots that had gained consciousness, and many others. President Shin Ye-jin spoke for humanity. She had been elected as Earth's first galactic representative and had spent years building friendships across the galaxy. Friends, the moment we feared has arrived. The Void Devourers will reach our galaxy in 3 months. Our scouts report they have enough firepower to destroy every planet in our spiral arm. A insect-like alien from the former Thexhari territory clicked nervously. How can we fight something that consumes entire star systems? Even our largest fleets are tiny compared to their forces. We fight the way humans taught us, said Ambassador Veltron of the Myrdal. Not with bigger ships or better weapons, but with ideas they don't expect. Captain Nam Hoseok, now a general in charge of Alliance military strategy, stepped forward. I've been studying the data about these devourers for years. They're machines, which means they think like machines. They follow patterns and logic, but they've never faced organic beings who refuse to follow patterns. Engineer Wang Daun, whose hair had gone gray from years of building impossible devices, activated a holographic display. We can't match their firepower, but we don't need to. We need to make them waste their resources fighting shadows. The plan they developed was the most ambitious in galactic history. Instead of meeting the Devourers with traditional fleets, the Alliance would use guerrilla tactics on an enormous scale. Every species would contribute something unique to the defense. The aquatic Myrdal would hide inside the gravity wells of gas giants, striking from unexpected angles. The crystalline Veltar would use their natural ability to bend light to create false fleets that would confuse enemy sensors. The mechanical Cathari would build thousands of automated ships that could fight without risking organic crews. But the key to the plan came from an unexpected source. Fleet Commander Zexkoth, the former Thexhari leader who had been imprisoned after the war, requested a meeting with the Alliance command. I know the Devourers, he said, his compound eyes reflecting years of regret. My people have fought them before in another galaxy. We lost because we tried to fight them fairly, with honor and traditional tactics. Admiral BAE studied the alien who had once been humanity's enemy. What can you tell us that might help? The Devourers have one weakness, Zexkoth replied. They consume everything, but they cannot consume empty space. If you can create a void, a place with absolutely nothing in it, they cannot cross it. How do we create empty space? Asked Minho. By collapsing stars into black holes at exactly the right moment. The Devourers will arrive expecting to find matter to consume. Instead, they'll find nothing but gravitational fields that will trap them forever. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin, Minho's science advisor and daughter of the late pilot Yoon Dong-min, ran calculations on her computer. It's possible, but we'd have to sacrifice entire solar systems. Billions of worlds would be destroyed to create the trap. Empty worlds, clarified Zexkoth. We evacuate everything living and collapse only dead systems. Use their hunger against them. The next 3 months were the busiest in galactic history. Every species worked together to prepare the greatest trap ever conceived. Ships from thousands of worlds carried civilians away from the target systems. Engineers installed star-killing devices on suns that had never supported life. Military fleets practiced fighting retreats designed to lure the enemy into specific areas. Minho found himself commanding the largest mixed-species fleet ever assembled. His crew included beings from over 50 different worlds, all working together with the precision of a single organism. Remember, he told them as the Devourers entered their galaxy, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to guide them exactly where we want them to go. The Void Devourers were everything the reports had said and worse. Their ships were geometric nightmares of black metal and pulsing energy. They moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Planets, moons, asteroid belts, all disappeared into their mechanical bellies. The Alliance fleets met them at the outer rim of the galaxy. It looked like a traditional space battle with thousands of ships on each side exchanging fire. But this battle was different. Every move the Alliance made was designed to look like retreat, while actually hurting the enemy toward the trap. They're following our projection exactly, reported Lieutenant Kang from her sensor station. The Devourers think they're winning, Admiral. B, commanding from the rear, watched the battle with the eye of someone who had fought impossible odds before. Minho, it's time for Phase 2. Start the star collapse sequence. In 17 different solar systems, ancient stars that had burned for billions of years suddenly began to die. Not naturally, but forced into collapse by technology that turned matter into pure gravitational energy. One by one, new black holes appeared in carefully calculated positions. The devourers noticed too late what was happening. They had been so focused on consuming planets and ships that they missed the gravitational trap being built around them. When the final star collapsed, they found themselves caught in a web of black holes that pulled them in from every direction. "It's working," shouted Engineer Wang from her command post. "The gravitational fields are containing them. They can't escape." But victory came at a terrible price. Admiral Bay's flagship had been caught too close to one of the collapsing stars. As the black hole formed, his ship was pulled toward the event horizon. "This is Admiral Bay to all Alliance forces," came his final transmission. "The trap is holding. The devourers are contained, but remember, this is just one fleet. There will be others coming from different directions. Stay ready, stay united, and never stop exploring." His ship disappeared into the black hole, taking with it one of humanity's greatest heroes. Commander Park Min-ho felt tears on his face as he watched his mentor vanish. But there was no time for mourning. The immediate threat was over, but Admiral Bae had been right. This was just the beginning. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kang, "we're getting reports from deep space. There are more devourer fleets approaching from other galaxies. Dozens of them." Min-ho stood straighter, feeling the weight of command and the legacy of all the humans who had come before him. His mother had saved lives with medicine. His predecessors had won freedom with courage. Now it was his turn to carry humanity's mission forward. "Send a message to Earth and all Alliance worlds," he ordered. "We need to build more ships, train more crews, and prepare for a longer war. But we've proven something important today. Organic life can survive anything if we work together." President Shin appeared on the communications screen from the galactic capital. "Commander Park, the Alliance Council has voted unanimously. Humanity will lead the next phase of our expansion. We're not just going to defend our galaxy anymore. We're going to take the fight to the Devourer's home territory." "Ma'am, that would mean traveling to other galaxies. The distances are almost impossible." "Almost impossible is still possible," she replied with a smile that reminded him of Captain Taeho's legendary confidence. "Humanity has been making impossible journeys since we first looked up at the stars. We ventured into this galactic empire without fear. Now we venture beyond it for the same reason, because someone has to take the first step." Min-ho looked around the bridge at his diverse crew, beings from worlds across the galaxy.